What's happening, everyone? Welcome back. I changed a little bit up with that cold opening, so hopefully you got a laugh out of that. But this is going to be one of, trust me when I say, several videos that are just going to come up later on. So, what are these about? These are going to be things that I see in the gym a lot. I'm going to do my best to stay as positive and constructive as possible. But these things are just, they're everywhere. You almost can't even avoid them. So I want to address them because they deserve to be called out. And I'm just going to take one thing at a time. Okay? Alright. Let's see. Very commonly in gyms, you'll see people exercising, and some are self-taught. Some maybe have had a trainer. Some have maybe learned from friends or had someone show them something. But there are just a lot of big things that I see all too often. And today I'm going to talk about one exercise, in fact, and that is the squat. Now, I'm not going to specify what kind of squat: back squat, front squat, goblet squat, searcher squat, wide stance squat, narrow squat, Olympic squat, high bar, low bar. That's irrelevant. The main thing is squat form. And this is what's considered a primal movement. So I'd say it's pretty important. Something that everybody should be able to do, and especially if your goal is to get stronger or build muscle or lose weight, lose fat more specifically, you should be doing them correctly. And this one is really something that I see just all too often. All too often. People are doing partial squats, or they're trying to overload on squats and they just cannot hit depth, or they start to go heavier and then they start to lose it, or they start to just cut things short, maybe because they're not confident enough in it where they can actually go to full depth. Either way, and I'm going to address another thing a little bit later in this video, you should be striving for technique, and if you don't have it, ask for help. Now, shameless plug, you can hire a trainer. Makes sense. If you don't have it, if you don't have the knowledge and the technique, that's what we exist for, is to help you with that. But even if you don't want to take that route, get help. I mean, find someone who knows what they're doing and ask them to teach you something. Do not continue to partially squat. Do not continue to try to get stronger and shorten the range of motion until you're barely doing anything at all, and then believe that you're stronger than you really actually are, and being able to handle more weight than you really can. It's a false sense of security, false sense of confidence, and number 3, a higher risk of injury. When you go quarter of the way down, you're putting a lot of stress on your knees. So when you get the whole myth, and this is a myth, that squats are bad for your knees, and then even on top of that heavy squats are bad for your knees, let's boil it down to that person squatting. Let's see how they're squatting, their technique, their form, because I will guarantee you that is the number one reason why people's knees hurt after squats. 1, they're only going part of the way down. They're not going to full depth. 2, maybe they have a mobility issue, so when they do try to go to full depth, it hurts them. So you need to address that. Don't ignore it. Don't just try to push through it and power through it and pretend like you can just get by without addressing it. Make sure you correct that, or be on the road to correcting it, because that will make a big difference. But in my experience, a lot of times you'll get just partial squatters, or those who think they're hitting depth but they're not. So, and this is going to bring up a couple other points that I'll bring up in this video, but you'll see it all over the place. This is nothing new, and this is the majority. Unfortunately, I'd like to see less of this, but it's the overwhelming majority of people who lift. I see it all the time. I have clients who, when I meet them and assess them, they do it all the time. And I've even had a client whose trainer had this person, I'm not going to specify gender to keep them anonymous, but this person was doing partial squats, not only with weight in the form of a back squat, but was doing it to a bench plus a pad on top of the bench. Usually benches barely even get you to parallel, but this trainer had my client use a pad on top of the bench to squat with. That's ridiculous. And not only that, but it was recommended not to go to depth. This can't be. This really cannot be. There has to be a very specific reason why you should recommend someone not going to depth on a squat. Now, if they're learning, they've never squatted before, if they're overcoming something, that's different. That is an individual situation where your goal is to build up the depth and build up the technique, but you might have to start somewhere. And that's fine. That's actually a good thing, because build their confidence, but the main thing here is that your goal is to fix their technique and get them to depth. Don't try to overload them right away, because if you try to get them stronger with a partial range of motion, that is not going to carry over, and that is not going to translate to a full depth squat. And that's something I'm seeing a lot these days. Here's one that's not going to be popular. It's just not. I just know that going into this video. Personal trainers. I am a personal trainer. Personal trainers who not only promote this, but do it themselves. This is not acceptable. If you are a trainer and you cannot squat to depth, you really need to evaluate, one, your authority to teach others how to squat, or two, if there is a reason why you do not go to parallel on your squats, that you address it and explain why. Because if you just start making videos, if you're on social media and you're showing your workouts and things like that, which is a good thing, that's a great thing. But if you are not going to depth on your squat, you should specify why. Don't just show your lifts and be like, oh yeah, I'm adding weight to my squats, or I'm getting stronger, or I'm going really heavy today, or whatever the case might be. Explain why you're not doing it, because by others just watching your videos, they're going to think that that's good. You're a trainer, you're certified, you have credentials, so they're going to look at you and go, oh, well, this trainer is only going part of the way down, so does that mean that I can go only part of the way down? No. So really, really important. If you have something that prohibits you from going to depth, make sure you state that up front. Put it in the description if it's like a YouTube video, Instagram video, whatever the case might be, and tell just whoever your audience is why. Because otherwise you should be promoting full depth squats. And if you're training people, be really careful about how you guide them through the process of learning how to squat. The last thing I would want someone to do is to say, okay, we're only going to go part of the way, and then have them do that for a long time. It may be the initial assessment, maybe even for the first month or so, but it's really important to teach a good squat. Start with body weight. Go from there. Don't even put a weight in their hands or on their back, or wherever the case might be. And again, this applies to all squats, not just one or another. It's very prevalent in back squatting, but I've even seen it in goblet squats, where people cannot even go halfway down. And in a goblet squat, the whole reason of doing it is to be able to hit depth. And not only that, but usually a depth lower than maybe, let's say, your back squat. But anyways, I'm gonna wrap this up in a bit, because this is already going on long enough. But here, the takeaway I want you guys to have is this. When you learn a lift, when you learn a technique, and I'm going to address other lifts in future videos, but this one is just going to be about the squat. Know your body mechanics and know what you can and can't do. If you have limitations, address them. Take care of them now. Don't ignore them, because it's not going to help you, and it's probably only going to get worse later on. Otherwise, learn technique. Don't worry about the pounds on the bar, or the dumbbell, the weight of the dumbbell, or the weight of the kettlebell that you're using. Learn how to squat. It'll keep you safe, and it'll also get you stronger and actually get you results. Alright. Not quite a full rant, but it's almost about where I get to when it comes to ranting. I can go much more into it, but I just wanted to get this information out because it's just too common to see. When you squat, you need to be able to do it correctly. If that means taking all the weight off, do it. It's not easy. Believe me, that's not an easy thing to do. If you build up confidence with a certain amount of weight and someone tells you, wait, you need to start all the way over from the beginning, It's not an easy pill to swallow, and I will tell you that from personal experience. But it's important. It's better for you in the long run, and it's also better for you now. Build your technique, and when you squat, strive for depth. Once you have that, and you're confident with it, and you know what depth is, then start to overload. But don't start adding weight just for the sake of doing it if you're partial squatting. That's a stage of learning technique, not trying to get stronger. Okay? Alright guys, thank you so much. Again, you're going to see these videos crop up time to time, but they deserve to be addressed. And when it comes to personal trainers, professional trainers, there's really no excuse to see partial squatting. Unless there's a really specific reason why, and if there is, you should state it right up front. Say, I'm only doing this because of X, Y, or Z reason. You should be doing it to full depth. Alright guys, that's enough. Thank you so much. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment below. And remember, adopt, don't chop.